Welcome to the second edition of the special podcast. Let me start over 1 second.
Oh my gosh.
Shut up, Joe.
We'll have to find a new intro guy.
We need to find a new Yeti.
Can't. I'm the only one.
What's Michael Buffer doing these days?
Chilling out in
I
his
bet
mansion.
he's free tonight.
Let's get ready to podcast.
He'll fit in the budget, I think.
What budget?
Howard Finkel.
Yeah, Howard Finkel. There you go.
I can deal with that.
Adjust you guys' volume here. All right. Welcome to Monsters of Geek Podcast Special Edition number 2, as we will discuss the fallout of the 2016 NFL Draft. I am your host, Aaron Collier, and editor-in-chief of Monsters of Geek. Go check us out at monstersofgeek.com. Of course, we have our mythical snow creature here today, Mr. Joe Yeti Collier is here today. We've got two newcomers to the podcast making their podcasting debut. We have first Mr. Met himself, Mr. Reed Salamonski. Reed, how you doing, man?
Doing awesome, Aaron.
And we have the greatest wrestling manager in the world, not just at MOG, but in the world, the one and only Daniel Barnett. Daniel, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, man? Glad to be here.
Going good. So, guys, we're here to discuss the NFL Draft. What are you clapping about?
You got it right.
Now I gotta cut that out of it. Thanks, man. Let me start over again.
I just want the YouTubers to know that you finally done something right.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we're here to discuss the 2016 NFL Draft. It was crazy, to say the least. At least leading up to it, a lot of picks being swapped, a lot of future picks being swapped in it. We just want to kind of do a little podcast and kind of go over it because we're all big football fans here. When fall rolls around, we're ready to go as far as both college and professional football. So, wanted to bring on these guys and just have us discuss a little bit and what they think about the draft, maybe what they thought their team did, and some of the other things that we'll go over today. Guys, just initial thoughts on the draft this year. Started out really kind of wild and crazy with a lot of drafts. Of course, Philadelphia moving up to the second pick, and then the Titans trading now the first for the new Los Angeles Rams to take over that top pick. Obviously, the first two picks went exactly like it was supposed to go. Two quarterbacks, of course, Jared Goff from Cal staying right there in California with the Los Angeles Rams. And then, of course, Carson Wentz going to Philadelphia. Poor Carson Wentz going to Philadelphia. At least it's not Cleveland, right? Daniel, what do you think, man? What was your overall thoughts? Just your initial thoughts coming into the night, and just overall the initial thoughts on the draft. Can you hear me, Daniel?
I said, Joe, you're cutting in and out for me.
Oh, okay. All right, Joe, go ahead and start off. What was your initial thoughts on the NFL draft there?
I thought it was crazy the way it started out with, the trading of the first two picks. I don't think we've ever seen that happen that close to each other. But overall, I mean, other than Larry Tunsil's Instagram and Twitter getting hacked, and I thought it was a pretty good draft overall.
Reed, what was your initial impressions, especially after maybe that first day, and maybe the whole thing, but after that first day, what did you think about the NFL draft? What did you think about some of the picks? Just your initial thoughts on it.
Well, I thought this draft was really different from other years. It was much more exciting, just because obviously the Larry Tunsil story and then all the trades that occurred. But as opposed to other seasons, teams are pretty stacked right now. I think the team needs are kind of at an all-time low, so kind of gives teams flexibility to kind of draft anywhere on the board rather than just kind of focusing on 2 or 3 different positions. They were able to kind of get the best players available rather than to try to grab a rookie to start this season or 2 or 3 rookies to start this season.
Yeah, that's what I thought about too. Just you saw a lot of teams, like you said, just take the best player on the board instead of just trying to get the best offensive lineman, or maybe they need a defensive tackle. They kind of went after the best player. Daniel, if you can hear me now, what do you think about what's your initial thoughts on the draft, just overall, maybe the first round? What did you think about just the overall draft and how it kind of played out?
Well, definitely, the story from it, and Joe touched on this, it's, the trades leading up to the draft. You saw two teams give away the farm, basically, for two quarterbacks who, in January, I didn't think were going to be game changers, but, for them they were. So it just had a domino effect for the whole draft, for sure. We really saw that. I mean, picking at 3, the Chargers had the chance to get the best player, in non-quarterback, best player in the draft, and when's the last time that's ever happened, So, pretty crazy draft for sure.
So let's talk about those. Let's talk about the teams that kind of was involved in those draft trades. Of course, you've got the Rams and the Eagles 1-2 trading up, and then you got the Browns, and then the Browns trading out, and then also the Titans trading the 1 pick, the Browns the 2 pick. Reed, what do you think about the picks of the quarterbacks? We've discussed this on the podcast before. On a weekly podcast, that these quarterbacks maybe wasn't the quarterbacks that you maybe would give the farm away for. I mean, you're not looking at at least in my personal opinion, you're not looking at the next Peyton Manning or the next Aaron Rodgers or anything like that. What do you think about those trades? And do you think that the Rams and Eagles got franchise guys, or did they kind of panic and just going to try to take the best quarterback that was out there?
Oh, it's definitely the latter, or the former. They more or less just kind of panicked. Goff and Wentz probably are the 2 best quarterbacks in the drafts, but it's a big and I actually kind of arguing that Philadelphia, if they really wanted Carson Wentz, they wouldn't have had to trade down for him because they were sitting at number 8. So, hypothetically speaking, Cleveland didn't want to get a quarterback. Because if they would have, they drafted at 15, and Paxton Lynch made it all the way to 24?
Yeah.
Like that. So they weren't
27.
27. So they weren't interested in a quarterback in the first round. So the only other team that might be interested, and there was 2 other teams between 2 and 8 that may have gotten a quarterback. One was the Dallas Cowboys, and the other was San Francisco. I don't think Dallas wanted Carson Wentz either. They were more interested in Paxton Lynch. And San Francisco still has Colin Kaepernick. You don't usually see a team draft a quarterback until they've traded the incumbent. So I feel like Philadelphia really panicked here when they really could have just sat on their thumbs and gotten Carson Wentz going to fall in their lap instead of trading away the next 2 years of the franchise. Who's not going to be working?
Right, I agree 100% on that. Daniel, what do you think about? Reed brought up a good point about Cleveland not wanting to draft a quarterback and the possibility that Carson Wentz would have traded back. Do you think that there was maybe another team that Cleveland could have traded with? Maybe somebody wanted Jalen Ramsey or Joey Bosa, and that Philadelphia could have stayed where they were at and still got Carson Wentz.
Well, I think Cleveland definitely. As we saw, they traded back numerous times. They were going to trade, no doubt about it. And I think, by them advertising that and everybody knowing that, I think the Eagles they freaked out, man. They went up, and Wentz was their guy. You got to have a quarterback in this league. They went up and got theirs, to go along with Bradford and Chase Daniel, who they also, paid big money to this year. I don't understand it, but, they're just pouring gasoline on the dumpster fire up there, and I love it.
Welcome to Philly, baby. Joe, what do you think in 5 years when we look back at this draft? Do you think that we'll be talking about either one of these guys as elite quarterbacks, maybe solid starters? Do you think that both of them will be maybe searching for a job?
I think Wentz is going to end up being a pretty solid quarterback. I've watched a lot of his stuff that he played at North Dakota State, especially this year. And I thought he has good intangibles, got good footwork. The only thing that worries me is the collarbone situations, where he does has 2 metal rods on the collarbones. But I mean, he's elusive and get out. Not really elusive, but he can get out of the pocket when there's trouble. I mean, if they coach him up right, he could almost be. I want to say kind of like a Tony Romo type player, even like a D-Nab type player that can get out of the pocket and make a play when needs be if they let him develop.
That's the big question. Reed, Joe picked Wentz. Thinks Wentz will be the guy that we'll be talking about 5 years from now. Between the two, are we looking at two elite quarterbacks, two solid starters, or are they both looking for a job?
I think the comparison to D-Mac or Tony Romo is a bit of a stretch. I would compare him more to like Joey Harris. I think that he has the ability to get out of the pocket. He has the ability to get downfield. He's not going far. And he's not going to make amazing throws. I think that they're both, to me, I think they're NFL caliber players. I don't think they're game changers. I don't think they're the kind of guy that you're going to build the offense around. And I think that neither one of them is in a very good situation. If they were going to go there to wherever they were going to be drafted, sit on the bench for at least a year, maybe 2 years, I think that they could possibly have a shot to be a quarterback in the NFL. But I think that especially with Jared Goff, being in the situation that he is now with essentially just one weapon in Melvin Gordon, I think that there's a little too much pressure on this kid for in a city that's going to demand wins. I don't think he's going to be able to. I think he's going to crack under the pressure.
Daniel, what do you think? Do you think we'll be talking about Goff and Wentz in a superstar type status, or you think they'll be just solid, or possibly be out of a job?
Well, I think had Wentz went to a better environment, Philly really has no weapons left anymore. I do, and with Bradford in the situation there, it's just, it's a terrible situation for him. But I think he could have been. I think he's got, definitely he's got the talent. Obviously, jumping from North Dakota State to the NFL, that's going to be a hurdle. But one I think he can make. I wanted him to come to Dallas. You know that I told you that, but not at 4. Later. And as far as Goff goes, never have loved the kid's tape, but he does have Todd Gurley. He does have a pretty good defense around him. I think if they focus that offense on Gurley, maybe build it off play action, I can see him finding a little success. He's not going to have to go out and score 30 a game. So,
right.
That's going to help him there.
The biggest thing, and I kind of agree with you on Goff. We're on the East Coast, so we have to stay up pretty late to watch, a second-rate conference in the Pac-12, or however many teams are in there now. But I'm like you, Daniel. I wasn't really impressed. I watched him against UCLA. I think Arizona. He had a better game against Arizona State, I think. I was not impressed with the UCLA game. That was a team that was kind of heading its way down, and he just didn't play well against them. If I can remember correctly, just really wasn't. Definitely wasn't thinking a top 10 pick, let alone a top 2 pick with that guy. He reminds me of another Cal guy, was Kyle Bowler. Big arm. A lot of people really liked what he did his senior year, but he ended up coming out, just never really caught the pro game. So he reminds me a lot of Kyle Bowler in that sense. Now, obviously, we're not wishing these guys to be unsuccessful. I mean, obviously, they've worked their whole lives to be there, and we want them to be successful, but I just don't think they're 1 or 2. I actually think Paxton Lynch was probably a better prospect than either one of those guys, to be 100% honest. Big kid, it's a big kind of arm on him. I felt like he really took that Memphis squad the next level, while I felt like the other guys maybe didn't completely. Maybe Wentz a little bit more than Goff, because Wentz was a really good football player for South Dakota State. But North Dakota. Oh man, I'm gonna get hate mail for that. But yeah, I thought Paxton Lynch was a guy that really lifted Memphis to a different level. And without Paxton Lynch, Memphis would have been Memphis in 2-10 or whatever it was that they was in the past. So, but yeah, I agree with you guys. I don't think they were top 10. I kind of like Goff's situation a lot more. I kind of agree with Daniel there that he's got good defense, a heck of a running back behind him. So I think he'll be able to mature a bit better. I think Wentz at some point starts this season. I don't even think Bradford, maybe he won't even report to Philadelphia at this point. So I don't know, what that situation is, but But yeah, I definitely agree that I think Goff's in a better situation. I think Wentz has the bigger upside there.
Well, let me add one more thing for
Sure.
you. Topic. One thing that really concerns me for Wentz's sake is that the Eagles had 7 picks in the draft. 7. They did not draft any receivers or any tight ends. They didn't want to build a rapport with any, a clean slate with Wentz and another player. They did draft a running back, Wendell Smallwood, in the 5th round, but they also didn't have a running back after they traded Marco Murray. But the Rams, on the other end, only had 4 picks, and they got 2 receivers. They got 2 receivers and a tight end. Those picks, even though they lost John Laurinaitis and James Laurinaitis and Chris Long, but they still wanted to get those guys around Jared Goff to kind of build that rapport.
Yeah, I definitely thought that not St. Louis, L.A. I definitely thought L.A. utilized their picks. I'm not saying I think they had an even draft. I don't think they had a good one. I don't think they had a bad one. But I definitely thought that they utilized their picks a lot better, they're not so many picks because they traded the majority of them away. So I thought they did a real good job. Let's just jump into the worst draft since we're mentioning the Philadelphia Eagles. Reed, just to kind of jump on that, I thought Philadelphia did nothing with the rest of their draft. I thought they got wins, and I felt like they all sat back and ate pizza and put party hats on and had a good old time because I don't think that they drafted anyone that I could look at and be like, that he's going to be a starter in the league. I just didn't like their drafts. I didn't think they did a really good job with the rest of their picks. If you're going to trade away all your picks, then you better have some serious picks to back it up in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds. And I just don't think they had it.
I have to agree. They got a few guys to help that offensive line, which I guess is never a bad thing. You never have too many offensive linemen. They did get a free safety in the 7th round, Jalen Mills, who's putting his college numbers look pretty good. But I don't know if it'll translate to the NFL. They lost a lot. They probably had the biggest names drop off their roster this year, and they did not replace them. So they're looking like the Atlanta Braves right now for 2016. I'm thinking this is a 3-win team, if that.
Yeah, Jalen Mills.
Well, I was going to say Jalen Mills. Even though they took him, he looks great. He always stood out to me. Watched SU, but he's a character guy. A lot of guys took him off their board, so Philly said, "Come on in." I mean, that's just kind of situation they're in now. Nothing they do makes sense to me.
We also got to remember Jalen Mills had some injury issues, and I think that was one of the things that took a lot of them off the board as well. When Jalen Mills is healthy, and all the guys that we all watch SEC football, when Jalen Mills was healthy, Jalen Mills was a heck of a ball player. But just like Daniel said, he had some character issues, and then all the injuries he had.
In the 7th round, I'm willing to take anybody with an injury issue or character issue and see if I can fix that. 7th round, it's a pretty good deal.
That's true, and we'll talk a little bit about some character issues, guys, and maybe people kind of jumped off the ship a little bit early on those guys. Daniel, while you're talking, who do you think had one of the worst drafts? Just you didn't really understand what direction they were heading.
Well, the Eagles, we've already touched on that, but the Panthers, I
totally agree. Agree.
They just lost Josh Norman. I understand trying to replace him, but they reached a lot with cornerbacks. You've got Cam Newton. I thought last year their offense lacked. Sure, they scored, but their scheme's going to be figured out. They need some playmakers. Kelvin Benjamin will be back from injury, but they really had opportunity to get some of those guys, and they whiffed to me. They never are a team that has a draft that stands out to me, but this one stood out as being bad. So, totally non-characteristic for them, I thought.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if you look at their draft board, they did take an intriguing pick in round 7 in Bo Sandlin, the 6'4" tight end from Montana State. I know Todd McShay really liked him. Copper kind of talked him up. Apparently, he's got a really wide catch radius. We know how Cam can get a little bit erratic, and guys has got to go up for it. That's why Benjamin and Olsen can really play with Cam. But that's an intriguing pick. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I mean, their first-round pick, I don't know much about the Vernon Butler guy, but I do know that there was an awful lot of really good Alabama interior linemen still on the board, and they took that guy. So that was one of the ones that I was really kind of head scratching. They didn't get, they had receivers on the board they could have took to help Cam out. That team, even with Benjamin coming back, I don't feel like they have a lot of offensive, especially on the outside, because Benjamin isn't a game breaker. He's more of a, possession guy that can make, big guy, make good catches in crowds, good red zone guy. Not a ton of deep threat is in him. He only runs like a 4.6, so he's not a speedster. I just thought that they kind of dropped the ball there. Joe, who do you think had the worst draft on your board there?
The Giants.
I'm so happy about that.
I don't know. I don't even know what direction they's going, other than, the first pick, which is Eli Apple from Ohio State.
Yep.
Is that his name? Which replaces, the cornerback that they lost to free agency, which
Prince Nakamura, right?
Yeah, Prince Nakamura. Yeah. Other than that, and I think the 6th-round pick, they got the tight end, that big tight end from South Carolina, which is going to need a lot of work, development. But other than that, I mean, their draft just wasn't there. I don't know what they were doing.
Yeah, I think the big question is why they took Eli Apple at number 9, I believe, is where they took Eli Apple. I thought that was a kind of a reach there. But, hey, I'm not a scout. Reed, who do you think had the worst draft? We talked about Philadelphia a little bit, but was there anyone else that you thought, man, what's their front office thinking?
I wasn't really impressed. They had the most picks by far. I can't count right now. I have the list right here in front of me. I'd say they had at least 11 or 12 picks in this draft, and they chose 5 wide receivers. I think that I was doing some research before. The most common positions that are cut at the end of preseason are tight ends and wide receivers. So they drafted 5. I could almost guarantee 3 of these guys, at least 3 of these guys, won't make the team. So they just kind of squander away these 6. I'm still a big RG3 guy. I think RG3 could make it in the league, but I think that waiting too long, I think they could have got Connor Cook in the 3rd round. But they went with Cody Kessler. I mean, to each his own. I think that's a better pick, but I'm more of a Connor Cook guy. But the other big thing was they did not address their running game, and their running game is terrible. So hopefully this works out for them. I'd love to see the Cleveland Browns come to turn it around, but this was not a draft that really impressed me.
I mean, I kind of like their draft, not to a point where it was like, oh, it's an awesome draft. But at least you're drafting these wide receivers that you can at least give a shot and give RG3 some targets down the field, because they really didn't have a wide receiver to go to. So I get why they drafted so many. But like you said, I mean, probably 3 out of the 5 won't make it.
Yeah, I think you look at and Reed brings a good point about their running back depth. They've got 3 guys, or at least 2 guys. I don't know who that last guy is, but at least 2 guys, if you put them together, would be a pretty decent back. But you got Zaire Crowell, who's shown they can't really be the number 1 back. You've got Duke Johnson Jr., which shows a lot of promise and was coming out of Miami probably had one of the best careers in the Hurricane program. But he's small. I mean, he's more of a guy that can catch it out of the backfield. I don't know if he's an every down back. So they've got 2 guys that can, definitely be a part of that offense, but they're not a number 1 guy, and really not to be trusted on that, 3rd and 1 they need from the, from their own 20 or whatever. But yeah, I totally agree. One of the ones that, we talked about Carolina a little bit. I'm really surprised no one brought up the Jets. I thought the Jets had maybe one of the worst drafts I've ever seen. Not just the worst draft this year, one of the worst drafts I've ever seen. And this is a team that last year was on the cusp of the playoffs. They can't sign Fitzpatrick back. That's they're still struggling to give him the money that he definitely deserves to be able to come back. They took outside linebacker. It was Darren Lee from Ohio State, and then it was just kind of some weird stuff. I mean, they take Christian Hackenberg in the 2nd round, and from there on, it was just the house was caving in on them. I don't understand that pick. I was never impressed with Hackenberg, and I think a lot of people, I know that John Gruden said he has the most as far as quarterbacking skills, but the fact of the matter is the kid just didn't show it. And I know he went through a weird coaching phase or a coaching change going from Bill O'Brien to James Franklin. Nobody wants me to talk about how I don't like James Franklin. He kind of threw his coach up under the bus, which is probably not what you want from your quarterback. As far as blaming other people for your mistakes. But other than that, I just hated their draft. I think it was one of the worst drafts that I've ever seen. Just a lot of picks that I didn't understand, and it started with Hackenberg, kind of worked its way down.
I mean, didn't they just? I like the quarterback they drafted last year, Petty.
Petty. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I get you need another quarterback, but I mean.
But here's what the Jets did. They have, which I still think. I mean, Geno Smith has the ability to be a good quarterback. He has to learn not to throw interceptions. But basically, what you've done is Hackenberg is the same quarterback. He throws a ton of interceptions. He's got a big arm. He thinks he can fit it into tight spots. You drafted Geno Smith out of Penn State. That's basically what they did. They already have a guy like that on their roster. So I just didn't like your draft. And I like that team. I like what they did last year. I just don't like what they did in the draft. I thought they had one of the worst drafts I've ever seen.
It could have been a lot better. But I think there's a mutual interest between Fitzpatrick and management to make something happen. I think that if they can bring him back, then aside from the Christian Hackenberg pick, I think that it kind of, I don't want to say it saves their draft, but it makes it look a lot better. It makes it appear as if there was no issue there to begin with. And even if they do bring back Fitzpatrick, he's no spring chicken. He's been in the league for a while.
Right.
He hasn't been starting for a while, but he has been in the league for quite. I don't know how old he is. He's probably in his mid to late 30s. So I think it wouldn't hurt for them to be able to bring somebody in to help groom. Because I love Fitzpatrick's mechanics. Yeah, he has some interception issues, but hands down the smartest quarterback in the NFL. So he could teach the kid a lot.
Well, he has that Harvard education.
That's right, and one of the best beards I've ever seen.
He has an epic beard.
Yes, sir.
Best beard in the NFL.
If you're listening to us, Fitzpatrick, man, hit us up on Twitter. We'll do an interview for you. We'll get your story out there while the Jets haven't signed you. Just let us know.
Not the best beard in the NFL. That goes to, is it Kessler from from the Steelers? What's that guy's name?
Oh, Brent Kessler.
Yeah, Kessler. Yeah, he has the best beard in the NFL. Keesler. Yeah.
He retired a while ago, though.
Listen, when your beard covers up your chin strap, hey man, you're good with me. That's it. Hands down, mic drop.
He actually is 33 years old, so he's not as old as I thought he was. But it still wouldn't hurt for them to bring in a guy. He could sit on the bench for 2 years, kind of learn the system a little bit better, and learn a lot from a good quarterback.
Well, I think you have that guy in Brass Petty already. If you brought him in.
Yeah, that's true.
I just think there's a lot more value. Overall, okay, I said it's a worse draft. The one thing they did do was they drafted a lot of quarterbacks, which in the NFL, that's what you have to do. Now, whether or not those guys pan out, who knows? But I just feel like they could have got someone really good at that pick. There's a lot of guys available, especially on defense, that could really have helped them out. I just didn't really understand the Hackenberg pick, but that's why I'm not a GM.
Well, I mean, you got a guy like Hackenberg that goes, kind of big body, big arm, and look where Cardale Jones goes.
Right.
Who did have some success in college. I mean, Cardale went, fifth round?
Fifth
or sixth round
later, yeah.
Was it fourth?
Yep.
Well, either way, I mean, you could have got Hackenberg a lot later, I think. And, yeah, he had some coaching changes, but you watch his highlights, and he's throwing it 5 feet over people's heads on little bubble screens and stuff. I mean, that's not play calling. That's a issue with him. Maybe they can fix it, maybe not, but I guess they're gambling so.
I mean, there was just a lot of better quarterbacks out there later round that they could have took. I mean, Dak Prescott was still out there when they picked Hackenberg, which I think Dak's going to turn into a really good quarterback in the league when he gets his chance. But like you said, Cordell, 12 gauge was still out there. I mean, you just had I think you had a lot of people that had more success in the NCAA game than Hackenberg did.
I just don't understand why they draft a quarterback at all. I mean, I think that's the thing. I mean, you've got two young guys sitting on the bench. Bringing a veteran, Reed makes a good point. Reed makes a good point. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They did it for the fans.
That's true, but the fans probably hated this pick.
They would have been better off. They would have gotten more value drafting Connor Cook in the 3rd round than Hackenberg in the 2nd.
Oh, most definitely. I totally agree 100%. Yeah, I think Connor Cook is even the Stanford kid, Kevin Hogan. I think Kevin Hogan's a better quarterback with Hackenberg, and you could get him in the 5th or 6th round. So I just felt there was more there, that non-quarterback they could have took that would have got better.
Where'd the kid from Alabama go?
He didn't get drafted. I think he went undrafted.
That's new. Alabama quarterback not getting drafted, but potential-wise, I thought he might have good potential, but
yeah, I'm sure somebody will pick him up. Let's move away from the negative. We like to keep it a little bit positive on the Monsters of Geek podcast, no matter what we talk about, unless it's DC movies. Best draft, as far as what you guys think. Daniel, we'll start with you. Who do you think had the best draft that you thought, man, that GM deserves a raise?
Well, to me, if you're going to look at a draft, you have to also take into account what this team did in free agency, so on. Because the two go hand in hand. We're building a team for next year. I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars just knocked it out of the park. They spent a lot of money on some defense for Gus Bradley. But then you get to bring in a guy like Jalen Ramsey at 5, and then Miles Jack in the 2nd round. I thought either of those two were they're definitely in the top 3 players in the draft. Some people, said Jalen Ramsey was the best, or Miles Jack was the best, and you get those two guys, and you get to add them to Malik Jackson, and then Dante Fowler Jr. back next year. I mean, Gus Bradley's got a lot of toys down there to work with, and then if you want to look at a team building the other side of the ball, I thought the Houston Texans went out, signed Lamar Miller, got their quarterback for Coach O'Brien. And then they come in and just load it up with some linemen and some receivers, Braxton Miller, Fuller from Notre Dame. So they got Osweiler some toys to work with down there. That's the name of the game. They went for broke on that, and I love it personally.
Yeah, I thought Houston had a little bit of an underrated draft. I thought they did a really good job because they just needed skill players. No Arian Foster anymore. They look at on the outside. You lose obviously Andre Johnson. Hopkins really comes big up big for him next year, but they need somebody to help. I thought Will Fuller. We'll talk about receivers here in a minute, a little bit later on. But I thought Will Fuller had a great, a great career at Notre Dame, and I thought he did a really good job. I thought they did a good job of bringing in Braxton Miller. Me and Daniel talked about Braxton Miller a lot. We text back and forth before the draft, and we love Braxton Miller. I like a guy. You talk about a high character guy, man. I mean, I know he got in a little bit of trouble at Ohio State, but as far as just a teammate, I mean, this is a guy that could have very easily still played quarterback for the best team in the nation. Could have won that number 1 starting job without an issue, and that team would have been a whole lot better at the start of the season, but instead he bowed out and went to receiver and just had a really good year, and I thought that was a great pick by those guys. But I totally agree. I thought Jacksonville had a great draft. They went out, got their players that they wanted, really built the defensive side of the ball, and Blake Bortles and that wide receiver core doesn't have to score 40 points a game now. They can contend. We'll see how Ramsey and Miles Jack and those guys kind of mature, because it is going to be a maturing process. But those guys have enough raw talent that they can make some plays in week 1. But yeah, I totally agree with both of those assessments there. Joe, what do you think about who do you think had the best draft overall in your eyes?
I mean, for what, like Daniel said, for what Houston done, I mean, their first 3 picks, receiver, center, and then another receiver to help out a young quarterback. And plus, I think O'Brien, if I'm not mistaken, has ties to both Fuller and the center they took from Notre Dame in the 2nd round. So, I mean, he knows those players. He knows what to do with them. And then you add, like you said, a Braxton Miller on top of that can do. I think you have a player there that was kind of like Antoine Randall with the Steelers, where he could step back behind the line of scrimmage and throw the ball down the field if you really wanted him to, because he has that arm and that capability of doing it. Other than that, I mean, I'm not real sure. I think I mean, there's a lot of good picks in this draft. I'm not sure if there was overall like a great team that done like a great draft, had a great draft. But there was a lot of good picks falling, like Minnesota getting Treadwell. I thought that was a really good first-round pick for them. And I think the teams that took receivers over Treadwell has done a really kick themselves in the future. And that's just adding to that core of receivers with Treadwell and the kid that got last year out of Maryland. Can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Was it Perriman?
No. No.
Brashard Perriman.
With Minnesota?
No, I thought they took that was the Ravens. I think it took Perriman.
Yeah, last year they took a kid like 4th round out of Minnesota. I can't think of his name. Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs. There you go.
And I think that those two is gonna be a great 1-2 punch. But I mean, overall, I think the Houston helped themselves the best because I mean, even if you look at their 4th pick, it's the guy out of San Jose State, the running back that ran a 4.4, but he can catch the ball coming out of the backfield. So it's not. I think their pick or their draft overall was really good.
Reed, who do you think had the best overall draft, just in your eyes, as far as just an overall class?
Well, I have to agree with Daniel and say that it was Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville really helped themselves out. They have the best up and coming offense in the NFL. I think Blake Bortles has surpassed all of our expectations. They had that receiver last year, Burns, who really stepped up. They added a couple more weapons.
Allen Robinson had a big year.
Allen Robinson is a beast. The running back that just got from the Jets, his name escapes me also.
Was it Chris Ivory?
Chris Ivory.
Yep, Chris Ivory. He had over 1,000 yards rushing last year. Just added him. And I am a huge Jalen Ramsey guy. If the Jaguars jerseys were not ugly as sin, I would buy Jalen Ramsey. They are the ugliest thing. I can't buy them.
And they made them uglier when they did the alternate. I don't even know how that happens.
They're hideous. I wouldn't. No. I will say though, I know you guys are real big on Houston's draft. I'm not saying it was a bad draft, but I think the drafting of Will Fuller was a mistake. I think that they definitely should have gotten Laquan Treadwell. And the reason is, I don't think Brock Osweiler is proven. He's only played 7 games in the NFL. He's still developing. There's still a lot to go in. And that's the same thing with Will Fuller. Will Fuller is definitely a good prospect, but he is 2 to 3 years away from his potential. I think with Laquan Treadwell, you're looking at an NFL-ready number 2. I think he can go in there tomorrow and make an impact. Will Fuller it's going to take a while. He may prove us wrong, but he won't be proven us wrong before we get. It's going to be a while before he can really make an impact.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Yeah, I agree with the Treadwell thing, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I thought that both Cleveland and the Texans not taking Treadwell kind of hurt their class. I'm not saying Will Fuller won't end up being a decent wide receiver. I just don't know if he has the upside or the already proven, a big play, impact player that Treadwell can be. I think that as far as, and nobody's really talking about these guys, and I thought that, once I was kind of looking through teams, just kind of really jumped off of the page at me. I thought the Chicago Bears had a sneaky good draft. Mm-hmm. I think they, looking at who they got Leonard Floyd, which, like I said, we're all kind of SEC guys, and Leonard Floyd had just destroyed Tennessee over the last 4 years, and that kid is just, even watching him, like, man, I know he's killing us, but man, that kid's fun to watch. Now, he's got to put some weight on. He's got to kind of get more of an NFL frame, but man, that guy, when you watch him play, he just played with such a motor, and I don't want to compare him to, he reminds me a lot of Von Miller. Von Miller came out of high school, or not high school. Von Miller came out of college and he was skinny. He wasn't big, and he kind of beefed up. I think Leonard Floyd may not be the next Von Miller, but he's going to be awful close. I think he's just a really good pass rusher, really kind of impact player. The other guys, this guy. There's a couple guards that was taken before him, and he was probably the top guard in the whole draft. And That was Cody Whitehair from Kansas State, just a big physical dude. And I thought, Chicago really needs some help up front, and I think they got the best guard available. I thought they did a really good job. I thought a lot of teams are going to kick themselves for not getting this kid. Just a big, kind of mean offensive lineman will fit right in with what Chicago wants to do. Jonathan Bullard from Florida, again, SEC guy. Will Muschamp defense. He was one of the guys that was recruited by him. Definitely a big offensive tackle, very aggressive on the line of scrimmage. I thought he fit exactly what they want to do on defense. And then you kind of look down, they picked up the kid from Indiana. Let's see where he's at here. Jordan Howard at running back. Obviously, Matt Forte's gone, so they need some running back help there. And I thought Jordan Howard had a great season, really kind of put himself in a situation where he could really succeed there. And I thought the 7th round pick of Daniel Braverman, I saw him play not his senior year but his junior year at Western Michigan, and I was very impressed with that guy. He's not a big 5'10", 177, but he can definitely go right in and play with the slot and be able to be Cutler needs help. I mean, Cutler needs help, in a lot of areas in his life, I'm sure. But as far as just on the field, I think he's going to slide right in there and do a really good job. So I thought they had a sneaky good draft. Not a lot of people talked about him. The only thing they ever said was Floyd needs to put weight on. But once he does that, man, and I hope he does, that he's going to be really fun to watch at the next level. I just thought overall, I thought they had a really, really good draft.
I think another team that had a really good draft is the Bills.
They were on my list. I thought Rex Ryan did a great job, especially grabbing a lot of those Alabama guys that just seemed to continue to fall. Lawson's a great pick. They were on my list too.
I mean, just looking at like the first 5 picks, you got Shaq Lawson from Clemson, Reggie Ragland from Alabama, that Washington kid. I don't know how you say his first name, Adolphius, I guess. I don't know. He's a big. He's not big. He's 6'3", but man, 297 pounds. You put him in that Rex Ryan defense, and he's going to be a monster to handle. And then I think he picked up a couple weapons offensively with the 4th and 5th round pick. With that's where Cordero Jones went, and then you also got the Jonathan Williams pick from Arkansas, the running back from Arkansas. So I mean, I think they had a really good pick, a really good couple late rounds, and even the first 3 rounds I thought was really good too.
Yeah, I thought they had a really solid draft as well, and I think Rex. You can say what he wants, but Rex knows his defensive players. That's what he does, and I thought he did I totally agree, Joe. I thought he did a really good job, especially in those middle rounds, getting some offensive weapons that they so desperately needed. But yeah, guys, any other teams that kind of jump out at you as far as just having an overall good draft?
I'm shocked to say this, but I gotta say the Oakland Raiders. They're a team that's after at least 10 years of just being mocked by everybody else in the league, have finally decided that they're ready to start competing again. And they got Carl Joseph in the first round, safety out of West Virginia. I mean, their offense is already, I don't want to say it's stacked, but it's on the verge of being stacked. Carr has just completely blown my mind. I never thought he would be this good, especially after how awful his brother was. And then they got a couple more defensive players and a couple more defensive linemen. They didn't get any wide receivers, which I think they could have probably used. But I really think that this defense is finally going to be able to be at least as good as their offense. I think they have a really good shot to win the division next year. Yeah,
and then that goes back, Daniel made a good point about free agency really playing into the draft, and Oakland killed free agency. I thought they had a really, really good run there. They got guys that they needed. They signed some veterans. They signed some younger guys, and they just topped it off with a great draft. So yeah, definitely agree. I think the Raiders they finally hired a GM that knows what they're doing, or that Al Davis is dead, whichever one you want to. Whichever one that you want to give the credit to there, I'm not for sure. Daniel, was there anyone else that kind of jumped out at you?
I mean, I hate to bring it up, but the Dallas Cowboys, maybe because I'm a homer, for sure, but, Zeke Elliott, game changer. And that is the most impactful pick you're going to see this year in the whole draft. That's my biggest takeaway from this. And so stoked they got him, and they still got some value with Collins at defensive tackle in the 3rd round, and were able to, of course, Jalen Smith in the 2nd. Can't forget him. Charles Tapper in the fourth. This guy ran a 4.59 40. He's 275 pounds. Freak athlete. Going to let Rod get a hold of him, and I don't think the Cowboys had as many needs as their record would have indicated. I really don't, especially when you got Zeke keeping the defense off the field. So I loved their draft. I really did.
That I always, like I told, I don't know if I said it on the podcast in here or not before these, but that fourth round or that fourth pick was a luxury pick for the Dallas.
Right.
And I think they turned it into the best pick they could have. Now the one that I love the best though, their pick is a 6th round pick. The last pick they had, Rico Gathers, the big tight end from Baylor. I love that pick.
Yeah, I mean he and I do, as far as what he can do athletically, the sky's the limit. And his draft call to Jerry was when Jerry called him and said, you're drafted. Most guys are screaming, crying out of their minds. I don't think he really knew what was going on. He said, "I accept." When Jerry called him, and that just killed me. And then he called him coach.
That's true. Called Jerry coach, and I'm sure Jerry loved that. I mean, let's just be 100% honest.
Jerry. But back to the Jalen Smith pick too. Really, basically, I didn't love it at first. We'll say that I wanted Miles Jack, but I really see the value there now. Jack's knee is degenerating, whereas Smith's is getting better. But what Dallas essentially has done, they've traded a 2nd round pick. He's probably not going to play this year. So for a top 5 player in 2017, but he's going to be in the building for a year as a head start. So who wouldn't trade a 2nd round pick for a top 5 pick? And to me, that's what they did.
Well, I mean, even with was it Brown in the 5th that they got, the quarterback out of is it Iowa?
Purdue.
I thought that was a heck of a pickup that late.
That's what I'm most in Reed. I'm gonna go ahead and let Reed talk because I know he's a Redskins fan. So we'll cut him some slack here.
I'm also the only non-Cowboys fan on this
That's
panel.
true. That's true. So I won't give you your time. You've got about 10 seconds starting now, and go ahead and state your case against the Cowboys.
I'm not going to sit here and say they had a bad draft. There was one pick that I didn't like, and you touched on it a little earlier, Daniel. I'm not saying I don't like Dak Prescott, but I will say he's not a good pick for this team, and it comes with 2 reasons. First of all, he doesn't fit Jason Garrett's scheme. Now, that could be irrelevant because I think Jason Garrett may be out of second chances. I think that if another rough start or anything like that, Jason Garrett's gone. And they could have gotten Connor Cook in the 3rd round. They didn't. I think Connor Cook would have been a perfect. I'd be terrified if I was as a Redskins fan if they had gotten Connor Cook. Now, Jerry Jones said in middle of the season last year, his ideal situation would be a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers type deal where somebody learns under Tony Romo for 2 years and then takes the helm, a seamless transition. Tony Romo is actually a year older than Brett Favre was when Aaron Rodgers was drafted, and Brett Favre never missed a game due to injury. So you got to think about that. Tony Romo is an oft-injured quarterback who's older than Brett Favre. So they needed a guy who could go in this year, play, and at least put the Cowboys in a chance of winning. I don't think Dak Prescott is going to fill that role right now. I think a guy like Connor Cook or Hogan may have been a better shot at doing that. I think that they're going to go ahead and give up and say that he's not their quarterback of the future. I think that next year they're going to have to definitely get a quarterback in the 1st or 2nd round. And they've already called. I think they're already saying that Prescott's probably just going to be a backup. And any chance that he had of taking the helm or at least having the confidence to take the helm has been shot by Jerry Jones literally saying that it haunts him at night that they didn't get Paxton Lynch. So I think that says a lot about their faith in or at least Jerry Jones, which is technically irrelevant because it really just matters what the head coach thinks. But,
Well, Jerry got one splashy pick and won another, and And that's what I took it from Jerry. I like Paxton Lynch. I'm glad we didn't trade up and get him. The one thing with Dak, and I think this all depends on whether Tony Romo can stay healthy. If Tony Romo can stay healthy for the next 2-3 years, I think Dak Prescott has a really good chance to be the next Steve McNair. He's already a better passer than Tebow. He brings that dynamic player that McNair had. It all depends on Romo. If Romo can stay healthy, then I think Dak has a better chance to succeed.
That's a huge if, though. If Romo gets hurt,
But Dallas. Go ahead.
if Dallas does get, let's say he gets hurt again, and they have another similar season to this, they have a top 8 pick, and I don't know what the 2017 draft's going to look like, but let's say that there's a good, decent quarterback available. Are they going to stick with Prescott, or are they going to go ahead and draft a quarterback if they have a top 8 pick?
Josh Dobbs, baby, Josh Dobbs.
Daniel, what do you think about Dak?
Is he the guy of the future, or is he the guy of the future?
You guys are.
Can you hear me, Daniel?
Yeah, he cut out a little bit.
Okay.
Did you ask me a question?
Yeah, what do you think about Dak Prescott? Do you think that he's the future for the Cowboys, or like Reed said, do you think if they kind of falter this season, do you think they'll draft one next year?
Well, first of all, I celebrated when the Raiders traded past the Cowboys to take Connor Cook. They won without him when he left. I didn't see a huge fall, big fall from whoever Connor Cook was backup at Michigan State. He was never a captain. I mean, you're a quarterback. You should be a captain from day one. He wasn't. He doesn't have those skills. It just kind of rubs people the wrong way. I never was crazy about him or his arm. Did love Dak Prescott throughout this whole process. As SEC guy, I've watched him tear everybody apart. But comparing him to Connor Cook or some of these other guys, he had less talent around him and played better competition. And was still, he had Mississippi State ranked number 1 2 years ago, or whenever it was. He's just a leader. He's a game changer. And now you look at the prospect of, well, right now Kellen Moore's a backup, but I think Dak will surpass him. Romo goes down. You've got this big, massive zone blocking offensive line. You got Zeke Elliott running behind him. They can run zone read, play action off of that to get Dak comfortable. I can see that being very successful for him. The offense would change a little bit, but not much. Like I say, they're already doing the zone blocking there.
Well, let me just throw out a hypothetical. Let's just say Tony Romo plays the majority of the year, but he goes down eventually, which is very likely. Let's say that Dax plays 6 games this year. He looks okay. He's a rookie. He's a rookie, 4th-round rookie. Let's say they go 2-4, but the team ends up having the number 6 pick in the draft. You draft a quarterback, or you say, we're going to stick with Prescott?
I think it's according to how he plays, and I think that I think it's according to, in that situation, how comfortable that they are with him. I think he's much more. He's very Tebow-esque in the fact that people like to follow him, but he's a very much better quarterback than Tebow ever thought about being coming out. He's got good mechanics. You could tell he worked on it since he was a freshman, so you can tell he has a work ethic. I think that he does bring an edge to this offense that people's like, well, he can always take off on us. We can't really rush him too far upfield. There's a lot of things that he brings, a little bit like Tony Romo, in the fact that Romo can run around and make plays and everything else. I think he's a project. I don't think he'll start this year. I think they'll stick with Moore if Romo goes down. I don't think he starts. I think you start to really see him kind of come around in year 2, and I think that I'm not saying that he's the end-all and be-all, of what we're looking for, but I think it's just a matter of when he gets an opportunity, how he practices, and everything else that we don't see. I think it's according to how they look at him and evaluate him. I think if we head in and say they go 2-4 and they have the 6th pick and they feel really comfortable with Dak Prescott, then they don't take a quarterback. But I think I don't want this to be where they're always trying to take the next quarterback, because I don't feel like you need to do that. At least we got someone that can make plays, because last year you could have been a cardboard cutout back there and still ran the offense. So at the very least, that gives you someone that can at least run and can throw the ball and guys want to play for. It's just a matter of how it kind of comes out. To be quite honest, I don't want to see Dak Prescott on the field in year one. That tells me Tony Romo's probably hurt. So it's just according to how he comes up and then how they feel about it.
I mean, I'm not. I mean, yeah, I'm a Dallas fan, but also I'm a huge Dak Prescott fan, and I said from the beginning that I'd love to see us get Prescott, just because of what I saw when he was in college. I mean, the intangibles, like Daniel touched on, he didn't have that much talent around him at Mississippi State, and he still threw for over 9,000 yards, 70 touchdowns, and 23 interceptions. I mean, that's a heck of a career if you look at it. Not talking about his rushing yards and his 41 rushing touchdowns. Now, does that say, hey, he's going to be a great NFL quarterback? I mean, we're going to see. I mean, he's 6'2", 230. He's a big guy. He can take that beating back there. But, I mean, I don't want to see him play this year. Because, I mean, I don't want Romo to go down again. But I don't think there's a quarterback next year that's going to be there that's going to be any better than what we could have.
Well, I think everybody said the same thing about this year. Like, well, I don't think Jared Goff or Carson Wentz is going to be a guy who's be worthy of a top 10 pick, and they went number 1 and 2. I'm saying that to be devil's advocate. I'm not necessarily.
Yeah.
And at the same time, yeah, I would agree that Kellen Moore is the backup, and I don't think anybody expected Dallas to use as many quarterbacks as they did last year. I wish no harm to any Cowboy or anybody. I don't expect Tony Romo to play 16 games, and that's me thinking logical. I mean, realistically, he's 36. He's got shoulder issues. He's had another shoulder operation over the offseason. I think it's highly likely he'd miss at least a game or two.
Well, I mean, as long as we go, 12-0 the first 12 games, we can set him down a few games.
Once we get the East wrapped up, I mean, it's all right.
But like you said, there wasn't really a clear quarterback that's going to be a star quarterback. But LA made the move up because they wanted a California guy moving to LA. That's
They got Jared Goff to put butts in the seats.
Yeah, and the Eagles, being the Eagles, just panicked and said, "Oh my God, we gotta get a quarterback." So, but no, I mean, there's no clear-cut quarterbacks in this draft right now. I mean, Paxton Lynch, I think, has the most upside just because of his size, 6'7", 240. But I don't think there's any clear-cut quarterback.
And the only thing that before we wrap up with Dallas, the only thing I didn't like about Dallas' offseason was bringing Alfred Morris if you already have Darren McFadden, and then you knew you were going to get.
I don't think they knew they was going to get Ezekiel Elliott. I think if Joey Bosa would have been on the board, Joey Bosa would have won. And I didn't want Joey Bosa at all, but I really do think that if Joey Bosa would have been there, they would have chose Joey Bosa.
But the other thing about McFadden is the Cowboys want to use a zone blocking scheme. That's their strength, and he can't run behind that.
That's
true. They had to use a man blocking scheme last year, which goes against the strengths of their linemen, which they've got heavy investments in those guys. And Alfred Morris, of course, he did run the zone blocking scheme, so I think that was an insurance policy if they didn't get Zeke. Now I think McFadden's obviously going to be the odd man out when Dunbar returns, and even the 6th-round pick Jackson may pan out. But McFadden averaged like 3.7 yards a carry when they did a zone block. When they switched to do a man blocking, he averaged around 7. But and McFadden's not going to stay healthy either for a whole year.
It surprised me you did last year.
Yeah, it's an aberration for sure.
All right, so let's move on from the Cowboys. As much as I love talking about the Cowboys, I know that Reed's stomach is starting to churn a little bit. So we'll just move on. We want to make him feel comfortable here.
Well, his guys had a good draft too. So
Washington have a good draft. They have, and in my opinion, they have the even before he became the Redskins GM, the best talent scout in all of the NFL, and Scott McCloughan got him from Seattle. He was the guy who drafted the Legion of Boom and Russell Wilson and all them. Getting Josh Doxson in the first round, it took a minute to sink in, but I think it's a good idea because he's just kind of like Will Fuller. He's not Will Fuller. He's not ready, but they've already, I think, with the signing of Josh Norman, that means that Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson probably won't be back next year. So they've got a year. He's got a year with one of the best playmaking receivers in the NFL, one of the best possession receivers in the NFL. Kind of learn the game a little bit better. And then they have one of my steals of the draft is Keith Marshall, running back out of Georgia.
I love Keith Marshall.
That he's going to be a monster, I think. Probably not this year. They still have Matt Jones, who they drafted from Florida last year in the third round, and he showed that he can really play. I think that Keith Marshall is probably going to be a 5 carry a game back, at least coming out of the gate. But I think he's really going to be a difference maker on this team. Their needs really changed once they got Josh Norman, which I know they paid him a lot of money, but I'd say there's only 5 shutdown corners in the NFL, and if one of them becomes available, you got to give them whatever you got. And for them to have been able to win the division with a horrible pass defense last year, I say you got to go ahead.
Yeah, I think they would have taken a corner if they didn't get Norman. And there was a lot of good corners in this draft. And, the kid from Houston I thought was really good. I thought that they may be a player to try to trade up to get Jalen Ramsey when San Diego was kind of bantering around whether they want to stay there. So I agree. And you go back to Daniel's points, what you do in free agency. And I think when they landed Norman, I completely agree. I think their whole draft board changed after that, I believe. So
go back to San Diego and the whole Joey Bosa thing. I think that I agree with you that he's incredibly overrated, and I would be really weary when he's getting the labels that he's getting because everybody says, "Oh, he's that can't-miss player of the draft. He's that can't-miss defensive player." And whenever a guy gets labeled like that, it's very negative to their career. They can't live up to their own expectations. Case in point, you got Mario Williams, Aaron Curry, Jadeveon Clowney, Morris Claiborne. All these guys were just titled like, "Oh, this guy's going to completely change your defense immediately," and none of them really were able to do that. Clowney may turn out to be that guy, but we were promised the second coming of Bruce Smith, and we haven't gotten that. But,
I think the same could be said about Jalen Ramsey. Just me personally, I think Jalen Ramsey will be a great player, but I think Jalen could very well fall in that category because a lot of people, they're calling the best corners is what, Dion to be taken there. So
Dion, I don't think he was that great.
Well, we'll talk about that later, okay, hater? Okay, we'll talk about that later.
He played for the Redskins too.
But
go ahead, Daniel.
Going back to Bosa, the San Diego don't they still run a 3-4?
From what I understand, from some of the podcasts that I've listened to on Bosa, is that San Diego really felt like they could move him around. I don't think they can. I think he's a hand in the ground.
No, they can't.
4-3 defensive end. I don't. If you put him in his hand down to 3-4, you're wasting him. You're not using what he is, and he's not fast enough to get off the corner on a rush in, and he's not fast enough to cover anybody. So I think he has to be a hand in the ground 4-3 defensive end.
Yeah, he's no J.J. Watt.
Nope.
I think that's what they're kind of thinking they're getting. Stick him on the end in that 3-4, and you usually don't get a pass rush out of that guy. But I think they're thinking they're going to. You're not going to stand him up and rush him, that's for sure. He's not dynamic enough. I don't understand that pick at all, but.
Might have been the best player on the. You look at all these draft boards, and you know that one guy is their guy. And I think Bosa, maybe they thought they weren't going to get him, and there you go. Maybe they thought that was their number one guy on the board. Who knows? But I agree. I think he'll be a solid player. I just don't think he's going to be the player I think he's going to be. And maybe later on he goes somewhere else.
I think he'll be a worse player in San Diego than he could have been. Let's say had Dallas had drafted him.
Oh, most definitely, 100%. I think he may be a guy that flames out on the Chargers and he goes somewhere that runs a 4-3 and just tears it up. I totally agree.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So let's take a look. The best first round pick. Now, there's a lot of pretty good first round picks. I want to start with this. I really like Robert Kimdichie to Arizona. I thought they got a steal out of this guy.
Absolutely.
I know he has character issues, and I know he fell out a window after smoking a bunch of weed. You know, whatever he smoked, he fell out a window. One of the guys on one of the podcasts I listen to, he goes, "Look, man, he fell out a window, and he's perfectly fine." I mean, that's the type of player you need, right? But yeah, I thought it was a steal. You know, you add him to the kid they got from New England. I think they're going to have a killer pass rush. I think he's one of the players that really kind of puts Arizona in that top echelon of teams. Well, just like it was last year, I felt like they need one more guy, and I feel like this is this guy. Robert Mays, who now works for Bill Simmons' new project, The Ringer. He talked about listen to his draft coverage, and I really like Robert Mays. Don't always agree with him. I like him a lot. And he said one thing. He said, Robert Kimdichie, he said he's had some off-the-field issues. I understand that. He said a lot of teams were scared off because he was a little bit left of normal. He wasn't wasn't a normal guy. And he said, but why does a good football player have to be normal? He said he's a little bit off. He's more of a philosopher. He said this guy can play. He said there's going to be, 29 other teams ahead of him. They're like, man, we really wish we'd have took that guy. Because I think Arizona, they took Tyrann Mathieu, and everybody thought, oh, what a dumb pig. This kid can't get his life right. He's one of the best guys in the league at his position and also off the field. And I think this is a guy that can come in to an organization that's used to that, and I think they're going to get an all-pro player. A defensive. He's going to be in the running for defensive player of the year every year. I just think he's a really good pick, and it's amazing to me that he fell all the way back to Arizona.
I agree with you 100%, Aaron. I had that written down and starred and circled, and he's an amazing athlete, and he's so big. And you touched on it there, kind of what they already have in place in that building with Tyrann Mathieu and some of the other folks. They've got the foundation to help him if he does have those problems. But I remember last year I was watching a game with Ole Miss, and they went to the power I and stuck him in the backfield. Everybody thinks, well, they're just going to pound it up the gut here. He's going to be a fullback. And they just leaked him out to the flats and threw it to him, and he took it 30 yards and scored. I mean, he's just freakishly athletic. So, and you add him to Chandler Jones with that offense.
Right, yeah.
To me, they're the NFC favorites. They have to.
Yeah, they're going to be really good. It's according, if Carson Palmer can stay healthy. But man, that defense is going to be really scary. Joe, who'd you think had the best pick in the NFL draft in the first round?
I mean, I think you got to look at the kids that made Ole Miss the number one recruiting class. And, you had Tunzel, Dinchey, and Treadwell all go in the first round. Miami picking up Tunzel at 13, I think it was. Is that right?
I believe so.
Was it still? I mean, we was talking weeks earlier that he was going to be the number one draft pick. So, I mean, them picking him up at 13 is ridiculous. And y'all done touched on, I can't even say his name, Robert Numdinsky or whatever his name is.
Freakdishi.
And then you have Treadwell falling all the way to Minnesota. Was that the 24th pick? If I'm not mistaken, not 24th, but it was somewhere down there. But yeah, I mean, those three guys I think are going to be, Pro Bowlers here in the years to come, and we're going to look back at the draft and be like, why wouldn't they take it higher?
Reed, who do you think had the best? And Joe, I totally agree. It shows where Ole Miss has come from no first round draft picks a lot of years to having 3 in the top 15 or top 20.
This is the last time it's going to happen. I mean,
yeah, right. Because Tunzel
they're about to get in trouble, but
yeah. Thanks, Tunzel, but yeah.
Tunzel put the gasoline on it and threw the match in there after he left. So he's that program maybe to the ground by the time this podcast is over. Reed, who do you think had the best first round draft pick in this year's draft?
Well, I mean, I'll never stop talking about Jalen Ramsey. I love him. I think he's going to be a great player. But I've talked enough about him. I really liked Tennessee's pick. They got Jet Conklin out of Michigan State. I think they really committed this whole draft to just kind of building around Marcus Mariota. But the only way that they're really going to have to do that with such an athletic quarterback, a guy who's kind of all over the field, is kind of building that offensive line, which they did, and then they made a few additions in free agency. And outside of the first round, I know that they got Henry, the running back, who's going to compete with Murray for that starting running back position. But I think that that offensive line is going to be a lot better than it was a year ago. So you can start right there.
So let's talk about Conklin for a second. And I know we're going a little bit long. I'm trying to kind of rush a little bit because I know we're a little bit late here. But let's talk about Conklin for a second. Conklin's a very good offensive tackle. Was ranked behind Tunzel, and some people even had him ranked as at least a second or third, somewhere within that nature. Reed, do you think? I mean, it's a good pick if the Titans stayed where they were at. Do you think that they still could have got Conklin and not traded into the top 10?
It's hard to say because Joe's best friend Laramie kind of threw the whole draft apart with his Instagram. Is he going to be reprimanded for that? I don't even know.
Oh, Goodell's probably already suspended him.
Oh, probably, yeah. I thought the most awkward conversation is that one where he went up to shake his hand and took a picture. I don't want to know what they even talk about.
Well, I think I tweeted or put on Facebook. I said, "Hey, welcome to the league. You've been suspended for 4 games."
He didn't have any idea what was going on.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, or Tunzel did, but Goodell didn't.
And then as soon as he picks up the Miami uniform, he admits that he accepted money from coaches. So I think that there was clearly some character stuff that the teams may have known about that they weren't sharing with the press. They clearly weren't going to share with each other because they were concerned, of what this guy might be capable of. Could they have gotten Conklin in the 10th or 11th? Maybe, but I'm not looking at the entire draft right now. I'm not sure who was behind them, what they were getting. At the end of the day, they may have been going for Laramie the whole time. That may have been the guy that they were going to get, and then they panicked when his social media exploded, and they said, "Well, who's the next best offensive tackle?" And I think Conklin is the next best after Laramie.
Yeah, that may well happen because I just didn't understand them trading up for him. I don't mind the offensive line pick. I thought them getting Tunzel was a great pick as well. If Tunzel, if they would have stayed at number 1, but obviously they want to protect their young quarterback. Build around him on the offensive line. We see how that works. Where it has worked in Dallas. We see how it worked in. Is going to work in. The same kind of. I guess the same kind of foundation that Oakland starting, just a really good offensive line to be able to put around your quarterback. I just didn't understand the trade portion of that, and you hit it on the head. That's the best explanation I've heard is that they traded up, and then the Tunzel stuff came out. They're like, oh crap, and they had to take, they took the next best guy. So that's the best explanation I've heard, even from any podcast or ESPN or anything else, because everybody's questioning him. But that's a good point. Maybe they just panicked, and he was the next best guy, and they just kind of took what they needed. Let's talk about the underrated pick that you guys think. What pick when the team chose? Joe, we'll start off because I think you're raring to go here. What pick when they called the name was like, man, that's a heck of a pick for that team.
I've got a couple of them, but I don't know if I want to say them all or not because I don't know what you all.
Just pick one. Just pick one.
If y'all don't touch on any of the other ones, I'll touch on them. But I think the one I like the best is that Tyler Higbee to the LA Rams.
Yeah.
Big tight end from Western Kentucky, played wide receiver for a little while, then he made the move to tight end. They can keep his nose clean. He likes to fight.
Some off the field issues there, yeah.
But I think they could really have the next Gronkowski out of that position if that kid pans out to what he can be.
Daniel, who do you think was an underrated pick just throughout the draft? Just someone that you thought, man, how'd that guy slip? Or maybe that's just a little sneaky good pick by the organization.
Well, like Braxton Miller, we've already talked about that. We've got a couple guys here like Joe. I'll go with one you all probably may not have. Kenneth Dixon to the Ravens, running back from LA Tech. I knew Dallas was going to take a running back. Watched a lot of highlights, things like that. And that kid can just flat do everything. He's a game changer for those guys. They weren't unsuccessful with running backs last year, but he definitely shores that up. I think he'll be starting by week 4, no doubt.
Reed, who do you think is your underrated draft pick?
Well, I already touched on Jalen Mills. I think he's going to be phenomenal, and Miles Jack, if he can overcome his injury issue, he'd be the steal of the draft for sure. He's even from the sidelines, he's like a Ray Lewis. I mean, he's going to really change the mentality of that defense. But one guy that I don't think you guys have is Mortez Bowringer, wide receiver. Last year played for the Swashbush Hall Unicorns in Germany. He's the first European player drafted, first offensive player to not be a kicker, be on a team. And I looked him up on YouTube. I watched some highlights on YouTube. He's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with what I saw. So I think that it could be pretty cool. That might be a jersey I'd be willing to buy.
You just wanted to say that team name. I know why you picked him.
Oh yeah, Swashbush Unicorns.
Can you buy a unicorn jersey?
I didn't even think to look it up. I'll go ahead and look it up.
The one guy that I really liked, as far as an underrated guy, was Cyrus Jones to the Patriots. I thought that was a pick that really wasn't talked about. I thought the Patriots actually had a pretty good draft considering they got some of their draft picks taken away. It's just one guy that I thought would be mentioned a little bit more. From the coverage that I've read, I really haven't heard, Cyrus Jones of the Patriots. When I saw that pick, I thought, man, that guy's going to tear it up in New England. They'll be put in a position to play and really, kind of thrive in that offense. He's already a great player. I think he dropped right in the perfect situation. And if I'm the Patriots, I kind of wonder why he was still there. Because Cyrus Jones, played in the best conference in America, the SEC, and also and had some big games against some of the best teams in the nation because he plays in the SEC. So yeah, I think I think that was a really good pick by those guys. And I just haven't heard anybody. It shouldn't be an underrated pick because he's a big name. But I just haven't heard a lot of people talk about that pick, and I thought he's going to fit really, really well with what New England is trying to do there. So,
now, I've got 3 more.
No, that's it. We need to move on because we're running out of time. I do want to touch on one more thing, then we'll kind of go. Then we'll kind of end it here. I do want to see a hidden gem in the 3rd round or lower. Something 3rd round or lower, 2nd round's out, 1st round around, something around the 3rd round or lower that you felt like was a guy that was taken that you thought, man, that guy's going to play. Whether you saw him live or maybe you looked at YouTube videos or whatever you did, just think that guy's going to be able to play. Daniel, what was a guy 3rd round or lower that you thought is really going to make an impact? Maybe next year, maybe a couple years down the road, but definitely has a chance to be an All-Pro player.
I thought that's what. Okay. I messed up. I thought that's what we just did, but I got you guys. Billings from Baylor, the defensive tackle, went 4th round to Cincinnati, and a lot of guys had a 1st-round grade on him. I'm not sure why he dropped, but he's strong as a bull. He's probably a 2-down player, but he just, you build a defense from the inside out, and you start with him right in the middle. That's an anchor. And Geno Atkins went in the 4th round as well to the Bengals. He's a pretty good player, and I think Billings will come right in and kind of spell him, or maybe they put him out there together. And not sure who you double team, but you're gonna have to do one of them.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. I was really surprised he fell as far as he did. I think he's all-pro talent for sure. Reed, who's your hidden gem, 3rd round or lower?
In the 7th round, Cleveland's pick Scooby Wright III.
I love that pick. I love that pick.
Linebacker out of Arizona. He was an All-American unanimous All-American 2014. And apparently, I'm looking at all these different teams were trying to acquire him, and somebody said that all 32 teams were willing to offer him a undrafted free agent contract.
Yeah.
Every team in the NFL wanted him, but only one team was willing to draft him. So. Yeah,
it's just some injury issues there. That's a guy that you bring to a team automatically makes the locker room better. He's a heck of a guy, no off-field issues. Just a heck of an athlete. If he can make a roster, which I think Cleveland would be dumb not to put him on the roster. That guy can flat out play.
At the very special team.
Yeah.
If he can't make the roster though, then he's not an NFL player.
Well,
anyway.
that's true. That's true too.
He can quarterback.
if he can stay healthy, I mean, he's gonna have a pretty good career.
And then he went and jumped in the pool after he was drafted. I was like, no, man, what are you doing?
Hey, he was proving that knee's fine.
That's true. He could have also proven that the knee was super weak and just blew his whole career jumping in a pool. Joe, I don't think I've asked you yet. The hidden gems, third round or lower?
Okay, I've got a pair of running backs. I don't think anybody's going to touch on these pair of running backs. I've got one, Kendall Drake going Miami in the third round.
Okay.
I think Drake was a heck of a running back at Alabama. I think he's going to have a better pro career than Derrick Henry.
I love Kenyon Drake.
And the second one, fifth round, pick number 171, the Seattle, Alex Collins. If his knee can hold up, I think that's a heck of a pick.
Yeah, I think both those running backs have a bright future, especially in the systems that they're in. I really, really like the Collins kid from Arkansas. I think he's just a flat-out good ball player. I hope his knee holds up. I think that's the only thing he got.
I mean, you saw that turned Alabama season around, or Arkansas season upside down when he got hurt. So.
Yep, out the gate, right.
Yep.
The guy that I really like, and this guy has absolutely killed Tennessee for the last couple of years, just a great ball player. He's fun to watch. Pharaoh Cooper from South Carolina. I think this kid is going to be an unbelievable talent. I think he is, as far as where he was picked with the Rams have shown with Tavon Austin that they can kind of put guys in situations. I think he's a better receiver than Tavon Austin out the gate. I thought Tavon Austin was very raw as a receiver, just a good athlete. I think with Pharaoh Cooper, you get Tavon Austin with receiving skills. He's fast. You can line him up anywhere and just pitch him the ball. I think he's the most electrifying athlete. Obviously minus The Rock, obviously. As far as the SEC goes, since Cordero Patterson. He's just a guy, but obviously, we've always joked about Patterson. His brain power just isn't. It's not. We'll just say it's not over 9,000. We'll just leave it at that. I think Pharaoh Cooper's smart. I think he's a great athlete. He's a good route runner. Maybe a little bit work on his routes, but he's just a guy that I really feel like 2 or 3 years down the line we'll be like, man, that's the guy. I mean, we talk about the two guys up top, but that's the guy we're going to talk about as far as to really help turn the Rams around. I just love that kid. He's just fun to watch.
I think you got is it TJ Yeldon? Is that right, from Alabama? The kid that went last year to the Oakland Raiders.
No, TJ Yeldon.
Cooper.
Amari Cooper.
I think you got I thought he got Amari Cooper in the fourth round. I mean, he's not as good as Amari, but I think he can be.
He's just such a flat. I mean, that game we had, Tennessee played South Carolina at South Carolina, where we came back and won in the most dramatic fashion, humanly possible in football. He tore us up that game, and he was just everything he did. And I thought, man, this kid's going to be electrifying. And I think he's got like I said, he needs to work on his route running just a little bit. But man, when I saw the Rams, take him, I thought, man, that's a heck of a pick in the fourth round. I think he's going to be really special.
I thought that Detroit was actually going to try to draft him to replace CJ.
I thought they were too. I thought when Detroit was up, I thought, man, that'd be a perfect fit for him. Really learn with Stafford. He's fast. Stafford likes to throw the deep ball. Obviously not as big as Calvin, but definitely could be a weapon. And I think a lot of teams are gonna be very sad when they have to play him on Sunday because I think he's going to be a great player.
As long as golf is too.
Yeah, as long as golf or whoever comes after golf is, right? I mean, at some point, whoever throws the ball for the Rams. All right, guys. Just some final thoughts. Thank you guys for coming on the show. I know it's a little bit late and trying to get everybody's schedules together and whatnot, but I appreciate you guys taking out the time. And does anybody have any final thoughts on the draft or or ham sandwiches or life in general? I mean,
I like ham sandwiches.
I love ham sandwiches.
And the Redskins.
Well, I don't like them so much.
Why didn't Detroit take Treadwell?
Because they're Detroit. All right, guys. Guys, thank you for being on, and hopefully we'll be able to do this maybe when the season starts, or maybe some college football stuff as well. But yeah, we'll really appreciate you guys coming on. And guys, don't forget, if this is your first podcast, we are monstersofgeek.com. We have a podcast, we have a YouTube page, a Facebook page, and more importantly, we have an awesome blog. And these gentlemen here has wrote a lot of stuff for the blog as well, along with a lot of my other talented friends. I say all the time, I'm humbled that they have decided to allow their talents to be on this website, and I just really appreciate those guys for allowing us to do. But go read their stuff. That's the crux of what we do. We love to write about geeky stuff. It would be sports, comics, movies, whatever. And just go check that out, monstersofgeek.com. And for Daniel and Yeti and Reed, I am your editor in chief, Aaron, and we're out.